Yep, you just saw that weirdo screaming at me, marching around my house. How did I get into that predicament? Here's the story. Hi, you. Yes, you. Thank you so much for clicking play. I woke up to a compliment. Somebody said that I have a quote captivating way of telling stories. I accept that compliment. I am humbled by it. I try my best to paint out a picture. I try my best to describe situations where I have pictures. I try and share them. Where I have videos, I try and share them so that the story is more real to whoever is watching or listening. I am glad that one of you took the time to appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. I'm trying to create a little community here for us so we can have a good time. Today I'm going to be telling you of the time when somebody broke into my place. Austria is one of the safest countries in the world. I'm not just saying that because my home is here. I'm saying it because it's a fact. You can look it up. Just Google it. Yes, one of the safest places you can think of. Austria is known for having a lot of like security. It's just not a place where burglaries are reported. And knock wood, we hope it remains that way. I love living here. Of course, I also love my home, Kenya. I plan on retiring back at home unless something happens, because in life, never say never. All right, so I was chilling in the house and I decided to just Netflix. It was in the evening, and then I fell asleep and I woke up at around midnight. I still had the remote control in my hand, just from watching, and I was rewinding the series because I had fallen asleep for over 1 hour. So I'm trying to remember where what I can remember, what was the last thing I can remember, so I can rewatch. So I'm just there, and then I fell asleep again. It was one of those lazy evenings where I'm alone at home right here, here where I'm sitting right now in the Alpine region. And like I mentioned, we have two places in the big city, Linz. My husband was there, and I was home alone in the Alps. We live in between the two places. And so for him, because he mostly works in the big city, this is more of a vacation home for him. And I mostly live here. The big city is more like my vacation house. So yeah, I was alone, and I had been alone for a couple of days. So I think the guy who I will tell you more about knew that she's home alone, right? Maybe he had probably seen me outside or whatever. I don't know how he got here. And finally, I just sort of woke up around, it was past midnight, almost 1 in the morning. And I'm just sitting trying to, I'm like, Elizabeth, now don't sleep, take some water and finally finish this series. I don't remember what series it was. So I'm just, it's quiet outside, and my house is not very far from the nearby river. So when it's very quiet in the evenings, I can hear the river flowing. I had some movement outside, and in my mind, I was thinking it's a stray cat, or it's the river, something jumped out of the river. I don't know. There's always crazies who go swimming at night. So it's Austria is a safe country, right? That can't be too near to my house. And then something broke. And I knew, holy macaroni, that is outside my place, because this idiot broke some flower vases that I had outside at my front porch. He broke a couple of those. And so that's what I had, that he had broken one of my flower vases. So then you know how You know how we normally tell ourselves that if this happens to me, this is how I will react. Like if someone was to follow me at night and tried to grab me, to kidnap me, this is what I will do. I will run so fast. So like I will turn around and fight him. I have pepper spray. I have this, I have that. If somebody ever tried to break in, they would be in for a rude shock. You know all those stories you tell yourself? Stop telling yourself those stories, because nobody really knows. Sorry, I don't know if this lighting is good. Maybe like I still don't have professional equipment, but just have my phone in front of me and I press play, but I think the lighting is fine. You tell yourself all sorts of things that like, if this happened, this is what I'm gonna do. If that happened, this is what I'm gonna do. You don't know what you're going to do. You will know it when the danger presents itself. So just zip up. I'm telling you now from experience, because I used to be one of those people who told myself that this is what I'll do if somebody, you don't know how you will react. Fight or flight reaction. It's not pre-planned. It's like involuntary. You don't volunteer it. It happens the way it happens. I saw it firsthand. So when he broke some vases and I heard, I knew that cannot be a cat, because right after the vases broke, there were footsteps, like human footsteps, like someone in boots. So I knew, and I don't know, I just knew it was a man. I hadn't seen him, but I just knew it was a man because I could hear the footsteps, and I knew that's someone right outside my door. Before I could even like think of my next step, because you're thinking, should I grab the Bible or should I grab a knife? Like, because you're human, your mind can be very superstitious. I was thinking ghosts and demons and everything. And then I thought, no, it's a man. Someone is standing out there. So before I could even compose myself and fully wake up, and like, I'm thinking, if I switch off the TV and I switch on the lights, because it was just the TV playing without any lights, if I do that, he will know that I know that he's there, right? So now I'm confused, like, just let the TV keep on playing so he thinks you're asleep. I don't even know what to think. And I'm like, should I scream? But where does you don't even have the strength, right? What if it's just the neighbor who accidentally broke a vase and is coming to ring my bell to tell me something important, right? Maybe there's a fire or like something important. I was so scared, and I hear footsteps, and then I hear the guy fidgeting my door, like trying to break into my door. That is the part where I knew, okay, this is not someone with good intentions, because if they had good intentions, they would have just rung the bell. This is something else. I literally froze. Like, you tell yourself you will scream, you will run, you will go to the back and break a window and jump out of the house and dial the police number as you run. You will go to the nearest hotel, cop station. You tell yourself all these stories. Oh, none of this happens the way you think it'll happen. It's all too fast, and I froze. I went into freeze mode. Like, I froze. Like, I was that freeze mode that he can just come in and do whatever he wants to do to me. Then I thought about my dad, because I grew up with a single dad in Nairobi in Kenya, and my dad grew up in the slum. Forget the ghetto, the slums of Africa. There were no role models where he grew up, and he had no father. So like, he grew up with a single mom who told him to move out at 9 years old. Story for another day. So my father literally raised himself from the time he was 9. I know. He moved out of his mom's home because the mom was very poor, living in the slums. He moved out of her house when he was 9. I was raised by a very resilient man. 9. Like, that is not the kind of parent who you tell, oh, it's so hard, it's so difficult. Kid, my mother asked me to go fend for myself when I was 9. Like, at 9 years old, his mom was like, okay, you're a man now. Where does a 9-year-old kid go? Like, what does a 9-year-old even know? So his mom was like, I'm too poor to feed the both of us. You're a man now. Go out there and make ends meet. Okay, you have to move out. You have to find your own place. Like, this is some, forget ghetto stuff, slum stuff. This is the exact slum where my dad grew up. It's called Mathare Valley in Nairobi, one of the poorest slums in the whole of Kenya. I remember growing up, my dad would ask, like, my siblings and I, can you guys name the greatest universities you know? And we would go like, oh, Nairobi University, Kenyatta University, and he'd be like, name even international ones. And we'd be like, Yale, Harvard, and he would look at us and say, what if I told you that there's a greater university? It doesn't have four walls like the walls of a classroom, but it has greater lessons, and we'd be confused because we were kids. And then he would be like, where I grew up, what I learned, not even the greatest university on earth can teach a man that. And he kept on saying how these streets taught him so much, so much, like things he could not acquire even in a classroom. And my siblings and I would be confused, but of course, again, we were kids. As I grow older, I keep seeing what he meant, because there's some people who just come from the school of hard knocks. They come from the streets made them, and my dad is one of those people. Like, the mother had tried ending her life a couple of times because he was just like hell for her. Like, being a single mom at 15, because she gave birth when she was 15, and then the conditions of the slums, being taken advantage of by men and not knowing where you're getting your next meal. It was just too much for her. No government support. And especially because she had a son, it was like, because I come from a tribe of people who really value land. We are called the Agekoyo, Kikuyu tribe of Kenya. So they were like, oh, you gave birth to a son, so he's going to try and like claim land, like ancestral land. So they kicked her out. She was kicked out by her own family because like there's a lot of emphasis in my tribe when it comes to ancestral land and who can inherit it. So they felt like, oh, she gave birth to a son, and the son doesn't even have a dad. So the son is going to grow up to want to claim land for his mom. So they got kicked out before my father could even speak. Like when he was just a little baby, they kicked them out. And she tried to end her life severally. So like she tried her best, like from the time she gave birth to him. When he was 9 years old, she was like, you have to go out there and find a way for yourself. So my dad is pretty street smart. For him to like have joined politics later in life, taken himself to school and graduated, owned homes in Nairobi, like he was his own godfather. You know how people say like you have to have a godfather? My dad is a living testimony that you don't. You just have to have God behind you, like the actual God. Forget godfathers of the world. Have God behind you. Have some resilience. Believe in your abilities and soldier on. You can make it. That's my father. That's the kind of guy who like raised me. And he had his flaws because obviously a kid who gets kicked out at 9, who starts to raise themselves at 9, is not a very normal kid. He has a lot of trauma, right? Because I'm like, Dad, where did you go at 9? And he was like, so I just walked until I reached the shopping center. And so like the shopping center of like the nicer neighborhood, which is middle class Nairobi, a place called Pangani. That's where he raised us, my siblings and I. And he was like, so when I reached the shopping center, there was like a lot of white and Indian people just going shopping, because they would shop back in the day in a place called Liberty Cinema Hall. That's like in the late 60s and 70s. And then they would drive to their homes in like Park Road, Parklands, Westlands. Pangani used to be like a real shopping center for like Indian community, Arab community, and a couple of white people. So he went and he was like, can I carry your shopping bags to your car? And because he used to make sure he went with his school uniform, so he looks more presentable, he showered like in the river, just in the river that passed through, it's called the Nairobi River, that passed through the slums. Like he would shower and wear his school uniform so he looks presentable, and then he would humble himself and go and ask if he could carry their shopping bags to their cars, and then they would tip him. So that's how he started, and that's how he later on had enough to like save up and get his own little just, it's not even a house, it's like a makeshift house. It's like in Kenya they're called they're just like made out of paper, like carton and paper. They're like the slum, where slum dwellers live. So he could afford one of those, and then after some time he started sharing rent with like his age mates from the slums. So they started living together, and they would like live in, I think, mud houses. And then later on he moved to a nicer area where there was like now brick houses, right? And then he took himself back to school. He was like, listen, I can't raise the fee, but I'm living on my own and I do ABCD on the side. And then they took him to school. And then after some time, he met an English lady called Dr. Nikki Nelson. She was like, you're very smart, right? You have, like, just interacting with you, I can see that you're someone who could make a life for himself. So help me with my, she was an anthropologist at the time. So help me with my research, and you can take education seriously. So she was like, he was like, I think that's where I get my knack for journalism, because at some point I worked in the media. So he was like writing her transcripts of what was happening in the slums, because she was living amongst the people, doing this anthropology research for her research paper in the university. She's a professor, and so they worked together like that, and she sponsored him, his education. And then later on, he ended up going to the UK for business and then coming back home. The rest is history. He ran for a political seat and won, and just in our local area, nothing major, just in the middle class area where he raised us, because he raised us much better than what he had, and he took us to private schools. So I will never, ever, ever not be proud of him doing that, right? Being that resilient. I look at some of his pictures, I'm like, where was that? And where was that? Like, I am legit, genuinely invested and fascinated by my dad's life story. I hope one day I have the chance to like tell it on a bigger platform, because I think it would inspire a lot of people. Again, he wasn't a perfect parent. He's still alive, but I'm saying, like, when I was growing up, he wasn't like a perfect parent, but like, I think no parent is perfect, but like, what do you expect? He had a lot of flaws, actually, if I'm going to keep it real, but like the parts where he raised himself and got himself out of a very tough situation, I have to give credit, right? So when I remember how I used to see my dad be so fierce in our neighborhood, how he was never scared of anything or anyone. When I remember like a bunch of goons who thought they could like come and intimidate my dad because he drove a BMW when I was growing up, when I was in primary school. He actually, again, I have to give credit where credit is due. He actually took me to private schools. So like, I had a very good education, a comfortable lifestyle. We weren't really, rich, but we were what you call hood rich, because I grew up in the hood. I grew up middle class in the hood, much better than what he had. But like, we were a good level, right? People who are from the hood know what hood rich is. Like, in the hood, you're the guys whose dad has a Mercedes or like a BMW. You're still in the hood, but like hood rich, okay? And then you get out to the world and you realize you guys were still in the hood. You're pretty broke compared to like people in higher classes or upper classes. But I appreciate having been middle class, because it helps you understand people from all over the world. You can interact with everybody. You will go into the upper classes and fit in, and you will go into the hood and still fit in, even into the ghettos, and still be accepted. Like, it makes you very all rounded. So anyways, some goons thought that they could be in my dad's face like that just because he drove a BMW. And I remember him beating the crap out of them. It's like 4 grown men, and he didn't even need much effort, because I mean, the streets raised him. He started living alone when he was 9. I just remember that fierceness of my father, and he was a boxer part-time. He used to teach. First he was taught by some of the, he was a huge Muhammad Ali fan. He still is. My dad is still alive. Muhammad Ali, of course, died, and I remember my dad feeling genuinely sad, and people calling him to tell him like, oh, the guy, your icon died, I'm so sorry. Ali, when Ali died, and he had all the tapes. Thriller in Manila, I grew up to that, like Thriller in Manila. And he had the Ali Boomahe, Ali Boomahe, when Ali was in Africa. And so like my dad used to like train, and he was a really good boxer. Now he's older, so I just remember him like 4 guys. He didn't even need that much time. Even like in our neighborhoods, when there was like incidences, my dad was the first to show his face, like, what's up, what's good. So when this guy broke in, yeah, Valduhat, you have stolen something. That's the scariest part of the video, because like I ran downstairs to press the alarm, and I met the guy face to face with one of my flower vases. Like I mentioned, he had broken a couple. Oh gosh. Anyways, back to the video. I thought of my father as like, why are you freezing? Why are you scared? You are the daughter of Irungu. You are your father's daughter. Did you ever see dad scared? Did you ever see dad running away? Never, not even once. So I remember thinking like, I'm no punk. And I was just sitting there like, why are you freezing? Like, what's up? Let's go. And I was like, who the fuck are you? And why the fuck are you at my front door? I remember just like losing it and going out there, because he was already like at the front part of my home. So in case he comes up, I can just run out really quickly screaming for help. But at that point, I wanted to show him, I ain't scared. I am not scared of you. I am my father's daughter. Because I remember just thinking about my dad. Like, would dad freeze? No. Would dad sit there and wait to die? No. Or be assaulted? No. Would dad like not face one little white guy? I mean, what? Growing up with my father, seeing him not scared, resilient, and his spirit came over me. That's when I confronted that guy. My father's spirit came over me. Like I felt my father's presence. I felt like dad was there with me. Like I don't need to be scared. You don't need to be scared. Defend your home, Elizabeth. Defend your life. Defend yourself. He is in your space. Defend yourself. And I just went out there to fight. So then I called the police. This is them arriving. Finally, the police are here. They arrived exactly 16 minutes later. So, yeah, I don't know what you make of that. Response rate, first world country, I don't know what it is, but they arrived exactly 16 minutes later. I don't know if that's a fast response rate or a slow response rate. But all I know is that if somebody was to murder you, 16 minutes is more than enough time. That's all I know. And to cut a long story short, we never pressed charges because it turned out that the guy had a mental problem. He was mentally ill. This is why he kept on yelling that I have his medicine. He kept on saying in German, Sie hat meine Medikamente, Sie hat meine Medikamente. He kept on saying that he followed me around town, and he sensed that I was an African witch from an old African tribe, and he has schizophrenia, and I can heal him. So this is why he broke in. And then he sketched me that I gave to the police. I gave the police everything because he had drawn me and it really looks like me. So the guy is talented, I'll give him that. But he was talking so much nonsense when I was standing out there. He was like, she's a water witch, like that I'm a witch from the water. So apparently there's witches from fire and air, and then there's water. White people will tell you all sorts of things, like Lord of mercy. So he said as like this, I checked it out later on the internet, like, what was this guy talking about? So there's air witches, fire witches, and he said I was from the water. And I come from a very old tribe of African witches. And he sensed me when I moved into this town. He sensed that I was here and that I was a healer. And that's why he was trying to break in, because I have his medicine. And I was telling the police, what medicine? Get him out of here. Because the police, you know, when the police came, they were like, so, hi. I was like, there's a guy. They were like, calm down. Can you just talk normally? God, police can be very frustrating. I'm like, there's a guy in there. And they were like, so what does he look like? I'm like, I couldn't even talk, you know. It's like frustrating. Just look for him, he's somewhere in there. Calm down. They were like telling me in German, ruhe bitte, ruhe. So, noch einmal, was ist los? Was ist hier passiert? Ja, es gibt einen Mann da, ist sehr laut und unfreundlich und ich bin draußen gegangen, weil du, bitte, rein! And I was telling them to go inside and just get this guy out of there. Gibt es ein Kind? They were asking me if there's like a child in the house. Nein, ich bin allein, bitte reingehen! Oh God. The police are like, Ruhe, bitte, Ruhe, Ruhe. God. So they were like, wie viele Leute haben Sie gesagt? Like asking me, how many people did you say you saw? Like making me sound crazy. You know, I'm like, ein, ich hab... That's the video of like after they searched the premise and found him and confronted him. But that was after asking me a bunch of questions outside. They were asking me if there's a child inside, if I am alone, and how many people I saw inside. But they were like taking their sweet time. They were not panicking, and I was like, I don't know, they were just a little too slow for me. I was just like all over the place. They couldn't arrest him because there's a whole record. You know how public hospitals have to like coordinate with the police. He's on record as a schizophrenia, a man with mental illness, and so he had a fallacy about me, an illusion that I'm his healer, that I'm a witch from an old tribe of Africa, and I can heal him. So it wasn't like a burglary to rob. He was probably going to come in and sit down with me, and probably he expects me to bring out candles and we can start the healing process. Because you see, I'm an African witch, you see. I don't know, it was just a weird experience. So the best we could do is like have him be taken back to the mental institution or be treated or whatever. I don't know what became of him because I was scared. But I didn't want to like, there was no way it could be criminally charged, and I didn't want to like follow it up with his parents for like a civil suit or whatever, because negligence, they should take care of him. I didn't want to do all that. Lawyers, you know, lawyers have to make their money, so they had all sorts of ideas for my man, what we can do, how we can handle that, and yeah, no. So I just let it go and I prayed about it, and I hope nothing like that ever happens again. But it was a really scary experience. But I felt like the police did their best. I have to give credit where credit is due. I guess they're just trained not to freak out like you. So I don't think they were being mean to me. I think they just wanted me to calm down and explain in a normal way. But they did follow it up, and they did call me later to find out. Because the thing that frustrated me the most is that they let him go that night. And they left. So I was like, are you leaving? To the police man. Entschuldigung? Gehen Sie auch? To one of the policemen. And he was like, yeah, ich gehe. And I was like asking him, like, are you leaving? Are you like seriously leaving? You didn't arrest him. Arrest him! Hello? Arrest him! Zu Gefängnis bitte! And they were like, yeah, nein. So they started explaining to me like, he hasn't, as of yet, as of that point, he hasn't broken any laws. He just fidgeted with my door. He didn't, like, they examined the door. He didn't really break it because I opened up and faced him and started yelling before he could break in, which was very stupid of me. Also, the police said, that's very dumb. Never do that. Stay inside and call the cops. But, you know, like I said, the spirit of my dad came over me and I wanted to fight. So they said, according to the law in Austria, they can't just arrest someone. God, I was so frustrated. Just because someone showed up at night, he didn't steal anything, he didn't harm me, they can't arrest him. they will arrest him should he break in after they leave and harm me. So I was like, so you're waiting for him to be beside my bed with a knife and then you can come and arrest him? Because that's how it sounded, you know. It just sounded like the police, like my man normally says, they have no teeth. You know, they can bark, but they cannot bite. That's the police in Western nations. A lot of them have not. Because if it was in Kenya, that man would be grabbed and thrown into the jail cells until I open up a case. And if there's no case, they'll take him out and throw him out again to the general public. But you don't go to a woman's house in the middle of the night. It is assumed that you wanted to do the worst to her. Come here, don't disturb women. Thrown into the jail cells. But out here, rule of law, he cannot just be, he also has rights. So they explained this to me and I was like, but at least one of you should stay with me. And the police were looking at me like, we are not babysitters. You know, they were like, bitte reingehen, zusperren, telling me to like lock up, turn on the alarm system. And then I was like, no, then I'm coming to the cop station. I was like, nein, ich schlafe doch, ich komme mit. I was telling them, I'm coming with you to the cop station. So the police kept on explaining to me why I could not follow them, why I could not sleep at the police station. I suggested maybe I sleep in one of their cars, and they were like, no. And then I asked the police guy who looked like he was in charge, if I could then go to his house. If he has a family, maybe they have an extra room, because there's no way I'm sleeping in this house. And they kept on telling me, no, just lock up, he will not come back. I mean, it was scary, I have to be honest. Nothing happened, nothing major happened. I didn't really get hurt, but I have to admit that sometimes at night I still feel kind of scared because it leaves, I don't know if that's called PTSD, it leaves some kind of trauma, because sometimes at night when something moves outside, I make sure to check so I can call the cops. Like, I make sure to go and completely check. I can't sleep again. So it's because of that incident that did that to me. Even having a place near the river, nowadays when something moves in the river, I wake up. Like, I keep on waking up at night, which of course interrupts the quality of my sleep, but it's getting better over time. And especially because I pray a lot, I love God, I always sleep next to my Bible, and so I think that helps me like be in a nice space and a good vibration. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked anything or you would like to contribute, let me know your thoughts, or if there's something you disagreed with, I have a no block policy, you can also let me know. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's create a little nice community for us. Again, thanks a lot for watching and stay blessed. Ciao.